When I first started minimizing, I really began noticing a change in the way that I felt. It kind of feels like an anchor that has always been tied to me is slowly decreasing in weight. The more that I limit my possessions, my consumption, and even some of my responsibilities, I'm finding that I can embrace life so much more. You don't realize how much of your time and energy gets spent on things that really aren't that necessary or important until you make a conscious effort to get rid of them. And this is something I realized especially around the holidays. We stress ourselves out over exchanging items that we don't even need or want, making plans that we sometimes don't even want to attend. We never really stop to ask ourselves, like, am I even enjoying any of this? There's a pretty strong narrative in the world that tells us the more that we own, the more things we acquire, the more that our schedule is filled, the more people we have in our life, we'll eventually reach a point of fulfillment and satisfaction. You know, I'll be happy when I finally get this car or this house. I'll be happy when I finally get the perfect spouse, you know, the perfect relationship. It'll be different for everybody, but there's always something on our mind that when we finally obtain it, we'll be happy. But the truth is that time never actually comes. And this specific thing that's always on our mind that consumes us is actually robbing us of our happiness because we become a slave to it. Because in reality, what actually happens is you do eventually get that thing or the person or whatever, and it feels really great for a while, but then that feeling starts to fade, and the thing that you wanted so bad that you now finally have, it kind of just becomes your new normal. And then before you know it, you're on to the next thing and the next thing, and your whole life has basically just become one big chase, one after the other. Now, don't misconstrue this as like you should just go live in the woods and, you know, get rid of all of your possessions and not talk to anybody and never, want to have any goals or achievements. That's not what I'm saying at all. In my experience, there's nothing wrong with, wanting things in life, wanting good friends, relationships, whatever. But when it gets to a point where you can't ever just stop and be grateful for what you have and appreciate for what you have in this moment, and all of your happiness just becomes dependent on acquiring more and fulfilling your external desires, you kind of start to miss the point of life. Or I did, at least. The only thing that we could be 100% certain on is that we are conscious right now in this present moment. And in my opinion, that alone is the point of life. I mean, it's literally just to exist. It's just to be alive and just to embrace each moment as it unravels right here and now in front of us. And when you're constantly chasing some other moment, or you want something, or you just generally want things to be different than they are now, you're completely losing sight of the human experience. So imagine if you just started cutting out a lot of the unnecessary wanting of possessions and even certain responsibilities, and you just lived a life where you spent most of your time doing things that you truly valued and enjoyed. I think back before I started doing this whole minimalism thing, and although I was never like really big on buying flashy, expensive items, I was still always kind of looking for, stylish clothes, books, I was big on like eco-friendly kind of items, but I would probably spend hours of my time just mindlessly scrolling through Amazon or browsing in shops. And I still catch myself doing this sometimes. And this is exactly what I mean. When I'm doing that, I'm not actually living. But even if it's not about necessarily material items, I guarantee there's always something else that you want. There's like always something you're chasing after. And it's completely normal. It's just how we're conditioned to be. I find that the solution to this is to try to just let go of wanting things so much. You could start with the small, unnecessary stuff. I made a commitment to not buy anything that wasn't absolutely necessary for a period of time, and I realized how much time I actually started to save and how clear I felt mentally after I began doing this. So all of the time I was spending worrying about, what should I buy next? What should I do next? I decided to just use that time more efficiently and engage in things that I genuinely liked and use the time more productively. I put more energy instead of buying stuff into actual experiences and things that help me grow as a person. Things like learning Spanish, educating myself through documentaries, exercising, meditating, reading the 100 books that I already own. I started putting my time towards things that were genuinely adding value to my life, because that's the stuff that truly makes us happy. Enjoying experiences, not material items. So for me, a huge component of minimalism is getting rid of unnecessary items, but more about alleviating the desire to consume altogether. Getting to a place mentally where I can be comfortable with the few items that I do own and actually cherish them. Because most of the stuff that we own is just in our way, and it just makes living more complicated. And this is something you can even test out for yourself, for example. So if you have multiple pairs of boots, multiple pairs of shoes, multiple watches, stuff like that, try choosing just one or two of your favorite and consider maybe selling or donating the rest. This is a really good way to start practicing and a really easy way, minimizing to the point where you have only what you need. And this will be very challenging at first. It's not easy to part ways with certain things that we own. But the way I see it, if it's something that's relatively inexpensive and not something that's particularly important or useful, just get rid of it. And if you really need it, you can always buy it again. And what you'll find is that life is a lot more simple when you don't have to rummage through a bunch of nonsense trying to pick out shoes and a watch and jewelry and whatever. You just grab the one or two pair of boots that you own, the one watch you have, and you're good to go. It actually relieves a lot more stress and gives you a lot more mental clarity than you can imagine. Now, I do want to note the thing about minimizing in this way, it can be taken to an extreme. You may have started this journey because you want to find happiness in less, like I have. So you start consuming less, you start getting rid of things, you try to own less. But now this may slowly start becoming your new identity. So instead of being addicted to consuming, now you're addicted to getting rid of things. Because our ego is always looking for some way to escape from its reality, or it's always trying to latch on to some external thing to try to be happy. So now minimalism has become just another thing that it latches onto. Like, for example, you were constantly buying because you thought you were going to reach a point of fulfillment and satisfaction. Now you went in the opposite direction and you're constantly trying to get rid of things, hoping to reach a point of satisfaction. You'll also hear your ego saying things like maybe, oh, I'm more minimalist than that person, or how can they claim to be minimalist when they own that? We'll start judging other people. It really just becomes another mind trap. So you have to be really careful and cautious of that, because it's really funny the way our mind works, and it's very sneaky. So one of the most important insights I've had is don't think of this as some end goal that you need to get to. Like once I've gotten rid of everything, then I'll finally be happy. It kind of defeats the purpose of it all. The whole purpose of this thing is to learn to live more in the present moment with what you have right here and now. So celebrate the small milestones. Like maybe you got rid of some clutter and cleaned up a bit. Maybe you just got rid of a few items that were laying around. Just enjoy that, just enjoy that achievement. So me personally, I'm just slowly over time getting rid of things that I see, that I find around my place that I'm like, I really don't need this. I'm particularly enjoying how easy it is to clean and straighten up. It's just way less of a hassle. Cleaning my apartment is so much easier now when there's not a bunch of stuff laying around, wiping everything down, cleaning the floors and so forth. It's just a way more simple job. The thing you have to understand is that this is a very personal and unique journey. You don't have to just throw all of your stuff away. You have to do this in a way where it makes sense for you and your lifestyle. One of the greatest things I've picked up from this is my ability to control my impulsive spending. There's nothing more satisfying than checking my bank account and seeing that instead of spending, $50, $100 on takeout and snacks and pointless things like that, I was able to just put that money in my savings account, or at least I spent it on something that's way more valuable. Because when you start making a conscious effort to do this, you start seeing how carelessly you've been spending money. You start to put more awareness onto this. You start to become way more conscious of how you spend your money, where it goes, and you really start to learn to love saving more than you like spending. But this also shouldn't give you an excuse to be like a miser and just hoard every penny away and never spend it on anything. In fact, it should be the opposite. Now that you're starting to really save a lot of money, you should feel better about spending your money on the important things, on the valuable things, the things that are actually pertinent to you in your life. You don't want to become that person that's ever scared to spend money. That's another sort of toxic thing that can come out of this. The idea is to just not spend money on wasteful junk. I really value, educating myself, personal development, that kind of stuff. So I don't personally see an issue in me spending money on things like online courses, books, experiences, whatever. Anything that I feel like is going to actually help me improve myself or add value to my life, help me grow as a person, I typically won't hesitate too much to spend money on that kind of stuff. But buying a bunch of clothes or, accessories just because I'm at a store, or spending like over $100 on a night out at a bar or a restaurant, to me now it just seems very wasteful. I did all of that a lot. I did a lot of that in my 20s, and looking back, I kind of regret it. Doing that every weekend regularly is really just such a waste of money. You kind of have to decide like what's important to me. Like I said, everybody's going to be different. Another insight I can share with you is that it's really the little unnecessary expenses that really add up over time. Pointless snacks, the daily coffee, the clothes and accessories that we don't even end up wearing, even though if they're on sale and you think that it's a good deal or whatever. When you start cutting this stuff out, you'll be amazed at how much you actually start saving. Even if you spend like $5 a day on, coffee or snacks, that's like almost $2,000 a year. That's basically just being thrown away on something you really don't even need. Stuff that's not even probably not even really good for you. And that's kind of how you have to look at it. It's all of these little things that you spend money on that really add up over time. time and make the biggest difference. And honestly, for me, it's not even about the money. Like, I mean, I do all right financially, but even if I was a millionaire, I probably still wouldn't want to impulsively spend my money on stuff like that. But I mean, if you truly find enjoyment from buying a cup of coffee every day, and it's like the highlight of your day and it really brightens your mood, then, I guess continue doing that. Like I said, you have to find what's important for you. But most of the time, for most people, buying coffee in the morning is just this like robotic thing that we're so used to doing. I cut coffee out. I basically just drink tea now. And being able to control that impulse is actually a lot more satisfying than actually buying the thing. You know what I mean? And this isn't even the case for possessions. It's also the impulse to constantly scroll, to constantly have to be moving. The idea is to be able to just sit and enjoy the moment as it is. In summary, what I've learned from doing this for the past few months, I'm finding that the satisfaction that we're all searching for in life will never come from this endless pursuit of worldly material items. Instead of searching for happiness outside in the material world, I've learned to now rely on myself for it. So that's pretty much all I have today. Let me know what your journey, your minimalism journey or experiences are like in the comments below. Very curious to hear. And as always, thank you so much for joining me.